What's the kindest thing a stranger has ever done for you, without asking for anything in return? I was homeless, was thirsty and hungry. I walked into this fast food place at 2 a.m. and sat my bag down. I was dirty and smelled horrible. I asked him if he had anything I could buy for $1 and he said that anything on the menu I wanted. I told him, but all I had was $1. He said if I gave him the $1 he would cover the rest of the price. I gave him the $1 and got a double cheeseburger and some fries and a large drink. When he gave me the order I went to the table, sat down, and when I opened the bag there was a $50 bill inside of it with a note saying that he hopes it will help me and he hopes I am able to get back on my feet soon and wished me the best in life. It actually brought tears to my eyes. About 4 years ago, my family and I were on a road trip to Florida. At the Mississippi-Alabama state line. We got out to take pictures at the sign, like families and tourists tend to do. Spent about 5 minutes there. Exchanged some pleasantries with a father-son duo doing the same thing. Then went on our way. 15 minutes later on the highway. We're just casually chatting in the car, when we hear a honk coming from behind us. I look over, and it's a massive, white truck. It's the father and son. And the son is waving my phone. Apparently, I had dropped it at the sign. We both quickly pull over. And I get my phone back. What amazes me is that they caught up to us at all. We were going 70 to 80 and had a good head start on them. That means they were on a mission to get my phone back to me and gunning it. The best part about it all? It was Christmas Day, so I'll always consider their kind actions as one of my favorite Christmas presents. Last year, we had to take our dog of 17 years to the vet to be put to sleep. It is a small office, so I am sure our bawling was easily heard from our room as we sat with her in final moments. As we were leaving, we had a nice conversation with a lady that happened to be picking up her dog. She offered her condolences, and the vet said I could just come back tomorrow to pay our bill. I called the next day to find out how much I owed and found out that nice lady had paid our bill for us. That is easily the nicest thing a stranger has done for me. When I was in middle school, I crashed my bike in front of the supermarket. It wasn't bad, but I was shaken up. An older lady pulled over and picked me up and took me back to my home. I don't remember her name. It was so sweet. I'm a little late to the party, but I hope this gets noticed. When I was 16-17-ish, I was going with my family to New York. And it was supposed to be really hot there. I hadn't been on airplanes very often, and didn't know I should dress warm, especially on such long flights, flying from Portland, Oregon. I wore a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and forgot to grab my sweatshirt out of my checked bag. It was a night flight, and I was freezing trying to sleep. Attendants never came by and I didn't know I could ask for a blanket. I was away from my family next to this older, foreign tourist couple, and tried to do my best to sleep while I was freezing. I woke up after a few hours, and realized I wasn't as cold as I was before. I sat up and saw I had this hand-knitted shawl wrapped around my shoulders. The lady next to me must have seen the quizzical look on my face, as she then says in broken English, "You shake in sleep." I have this, pointing to the shawl. I thanked her profusely and she says, "Go to sleep. He's sleeping," pointing to her husband who had started to rouse. I fell back asleep for the rest of the flight and thanked her a million times more as we were getting off the plane. What a lovely woman. About 20 years ago I was flying standby to my hometown because my brother had died, suicide. I was 5th or 6th on the list. I was a mess but didn't say why I was flying to anyone. When the first guy on the list got called, he went up to the gate agent and told her that I obviously needed to get on that flight before anyone else on the standby list, and she agreed and called me to get on the plane. I often think about this kind man and hope he's been living the good life he deserves. It was 1993 and I was a broke 18-year college girl with crappy tires on my car, driving on the interstate, and had a blowout. No cell phone, no cash on hand, and several miles away from help. So there I am standing next to my car with no idea what to do, and this big, junky car pulls over. Guy whose physical appearance matches his car perfectly gets out and asks if I need some help. I told him no, I'm fine, even though I definitely was not. He told me to pop my trunk. I wanted him to go away because I was nervous, but popped the trunk anyway. The things I can't help but remember, and it makes me smile, was that 1. His t-shirt was too short to cover his belly, which hung over the waistband of his shorts, and 2. He unwrapped a Snickers bar and proceeded to eat it one bite. Pulls my spare tire and jack out of the trunk. Changes my tire in a matter of seconds. Tells me I'm good to go. And drives away. No bravado. No introduction. No goodbye. I was stunned. This goes out to all the big, sloppy looking, clunker driving, Snickers bar eating guardian angels out there. You are the real heroes. I loved my grandmother's antique sugar and creamer set. I wanted one of my own when I got married, but my grandmother was still using hers. So I started my quest of searching for a similar set. Apparently that particular plastic set was either not popular or not many survived because it was incredibly hard to find. I finally just posted a description of what I was looking for on an antiquing forum because I couldn't even find an image of it, and a lady responded with a photo of the set she had. I asked her if she would sell it and told her why I wanted it. She responded that she would consider selling it, so I sent her my address and asked for a return address or a link to pay. No response, but a couple weeks later I got the set in the mail, with no return address, and a sweet letter wishing me good luck in my new marriage and new home, and the hope that I would cherish the set she sent me. This complete stranger that I had no idea who they were or even where they lived sent me this incredible gift. 13 years later and I am still using that same set, and I do cherish it very much. Tried to kill myself by jumping off a bridge onto the motorway. I was caught by a passerby. A man in his 40s, I was 26 at the time, who grabbed me, yanked me back and restrained me so that I couldn't go back. His female colleague was with him and she called the police. They then sat with me, he was still restraining me, and calmly chatted with me as though it was just another day, which calmed me down a bit until he was able to let me go, although he sat within grabbing distance until the police arrived. I was really nasty to them for saving me when I wanted to die so badly, but they didn't get angry with me at all. Never got their names, they introduced themselves, but as you can imagine I was in a bit of a state. But I'm so incredibly grateful. I'm doing so much better now and wish I could thank them. Gave me a lift to my uni bus. I just missed the bus and was running behind it. Then a person from a micro on the road shouted at me to hop in. So I just hopped in without a second thought. They hurriedly went for the uni bus and stopped in front of it so I could catch it. It sounds terrible, but it wasn't. I was working at 711 on Christmas Eve. An East Indian couple came in and started chatting. They don't celebrate Christmas, but I did. It came out that I was missing the evening. They left. Then TJE lady came back in. Said she wanted to get her husband chocolate, but he wasn't a big sweet guy. What would I recommend for him? She bought king-size versions of everything I said. Then told me Merry Christmas from us. Those are for you, and left. A stranger bought myself and my ex dinner on Valentine's Day, and the waitress said he was so happy to do it. I guess he was a widower. And doing a kind thing was enough to keep him happy through tough times. Thank you, stranger. An old lady I met on an Amtrak train when I was 10 years old found out I was interested in coins. She asked me for my address and promised to send me a couple books. A few weeks later, a big package arrived on my doorstep. Inside was her entire coin collection. Most of it carefully catalogued and arranged in coin books. Thanks, Connie. I still think of this. I work at a theater box office that has Broadway performances. Hamilton was premiering for the week and employees were not allowed to get tickets unless they paid for one, and even with the minor discount it was expensive. As a college student, I could not afford it at all, and it was my dream to watch it. I was a huge Hamilton fan since it first began. On the very last day of the show, a lady goes up to my ticket window and asks me, "Have you seen the show and do you know if it's worth it?" No, but I for sure know it's worth it. It's been sold out and very popular. Here. My daughter couldn't come. You can have her ticket. It was a $550 ticket in the third row center of the theater. I am beyond blessed, and I will not forget how kind this stranger was. Edit. My manager, not a stranger, was also so kind to cover my ticket window and let me leave early to see the show. Changed my flat tire for me in a parking lot. As soon as I was getting out of the car, he was already standing at my trunk asking me to open up so he could get the spare and take care of it. He wouldn't even let me help. I was 19 or 20 years old at the time and a big guy, so I could have handled it myself. But for whatever reason he seemed like he wanted to help someone, and I just happened to be that person there for him to help. I tried to slip him some money at the end and he refused and told me to have a good day. I wish that guy the best. At the airport for my first solo international travel, and I was so excited. Took a lift to the airport and was stoked to see my family in England. I couldn't get that nervous butterfly feeling out of me for some reason. Fast forward to the security checkpoint. I'm checking my pockets to take everything out. Passport, wallet, phone. Oh, I left my phone in the lift. Without that I'm literally hopeless, as I would not be able to contact my family who had bought a train ticket for me. I'm having a panic attack in line. Then two wonderfully kind ladies. I'll never forget their names, Samantha and Kim. Let me use their phones to try and somehow contact this Lyft driver. It would take a miracle to get it back. But then the driver did call back and came all the way to the airport to drop it off. I was eternally grateful and will never forget those ladies and my amazing driver. I had to go out and come back through security and made my flight by mere seconds. I made a vow to always pay that kindness forward. Thank you, Samantha and Kim, wherever you are. I was walking home in heavy rain and a bus stopped beside me and the driver said to get on. I explained that I didn't have the fare and he said not to worry about it. My dad and I were driving to our vacation spot with two cat carriers in the backseat. Someone on the highway stopped for no reason and caused a chain reaction. We were the third car in the line. Everyone was fine, but our car's hood was completely smashed in and it wasn't drivable. We managed to limp it off the highway to a Home Depot and waited there for AAA. This was in the middle of the Jersey summer and AAA said it would be at least a few hours. I was getting very worried about the cats. The Home Depot let me bring them inside. So I ended up sitting in the front of the store with a double stack of cat carriers. I must have looked really pathetic because a couple with a teenager son stopped to ask if I was okay. Once they heard we were stranded, they took complete charge. They got us food and drove us and the cats to the local airport to rent a car. We were all crammed into their tiny car with big bulky carriers on our laps. They were so unbelievably kind and refused to leave until we had our rental car. Edited to add, this is why you should always secure your pet carriers in place with seat belts and get the most secure ones you can afford. The cats came through the whole experience just fine. But it could have been much worse if they hadn't been strapped down. I was 4 or 5 when a kind man gave me some candy in the street. I was with my mom and I remember how happy both of us were. I don't remember what it was exactly. But it was something red and big enough to fill my palm and I was so happy. For the reference, it was post-war period in my country. My family was very poor. Never underestimate a little present you give to a child in need. That man taught me a good lesson with his gesture. My niece was dying of cancer and my family was taking turns caring for her. Shay had a large dog and I had to buy dog food when I went shopping. The dog food she wanted came in 50 lb bags. A clerk at the store got the bag down from the top shelf and put it in my cart and the cashier just read "Hiver" and rang it up. When I got to my car I realized that I couldn't pick it up to put it in the car. This man came along on his way to the store. Stopped, picked up the bag. Put it in my trunk and never said a word. My thanks echoed through the parking lot. Last year I had the worst time of my life and had a big fight with my best and only friend. I decided it was enough and went to a local park and was thinking how to finally kill myself. I sat on a bench and looked at the sky for some time while crying. 2 elder teens went and sat next to me to smoke and they tried talking to me. It was weird but nice to talk to someone, so I did. Turns out the 2 had a combined total of 7 suicide attempts. Hours only leaving when they knew I was going home. One of them added me on Facebook later and I thanked her so much. I was on an airplane with my then toddler daughter and infant son. It was a 12-hour transatlantic flight. My daughter was a champion traveler but my son was not. And he was really fussy. I struggled to handle both kids. Making sure she got what she needed and trying to calm down the crying baby, and I was just plain tired and overwhelmed. An angel. A kind lady tapped me on the shoulder and offered to walk my baby in the aisle so I could get my daughter settled and take a break for myself. Normally I wouldn't hand over my baby to a stranger. But it's hard to kidnap on a plane. She walked my son for hours. I got settled, rested, and calmed down. She brought back a happy, sleepy boy. He's now 16 and I still remember how grateful I was for her. I was totally down on my luck living out of a hotel. I did have a job but not enough money to stay there until my check came. A friend of mine bought me lunch and was telling that they couldn't help with much but this is what they had. Which was $300 short. I guess we had talked about it but I don't remember. The next thing I know, this guy at the next table is leaving and he tells me not to go until he comes back. His girlfriend, wife stayed behind even though they had paid the bill. He was back in a few minutes and he hands me $300. I asked him for his contact info and said he didn't want it back and to keep working to stay off the streets. The man literally stopped my mom and I from becoming homeless. I still have a job and I am in a nice apartment now, but I will always remember that man's generosity. I have tried to help other people as much as I can to pay him back in some way. Thanks for the question. It reminded me of one man's generosity of spirit and kindness, and I think we all need that right now. A couple of months ago, a really nice Dutch couple gave us a ride to the airport. I was with my mom and returning back home after dropping out of university. It was the period of time in February where there were extremely strong winds, which had caused the train lines to be stopped temporarily. Then we would have had to wait for buses, etc. If it wasn't for them, we may have missed our flight. One thing that never fails to surprise me is how welcoming, polite and considerate the Dutch people are. I was struggling through college. Had maybe $30 in my account and really needed gas. I commuted 25 miles to campus every day. I pull in and it's full. But a guy waves me down to pull in behind him. He says, "Hey, I bought more than I needed, so there's about $10 of gas still on there." I almost started crying. Because that got me almost 4 gallons of gas. It really helped me out in a bad time. And I'm forever grateful. When I was homeless and living in my truck broke down. There was a guy who lived in a house across the street from where my truck broke down, and he came out and helped me figure out that the alternator had died. Took me to the auto parts store, paid for my new alternator, and they said that it would be the next day before it would get in. He offered to let me spend the night at his house with his family, and I got to shower and a good meal and a place to sleep, and the next day he took me back to the auto parts store to pick up the alternator, helped me install it, and gave me a little bit of cash to send me on my way. He's a good dude, and I hope everything's still going great for him. I was 18 and living away from home for the first time, from the UK. Moved to Canada. I couldn't afford much, so I'd walked 2 miles through the snow to buy bedding in a discount shop and was having a miserable day. The woman in front of me in the cashier queue put $50 on a store voucher card. Handed it to me and walked away before I had a chance to react. In the middle of a tough day. It really made a difference. Definitely the most memorable random act of kindness I've ever experienced. Some old couple gave my son 50K tickets at the arcade. The husband was dying. This was their last trip. Years. When I was 19. Had a flat tire, and a kind stranger and his daughter were walking past, and the dad stopped to change my flat without any hesitation. After that, I asked my dad to teach me and have helped people change their tire. One day I was stranded in London after visiting my brother. I hate traveling, and I'm from a city that's close but not so busy. So it's a bit of a shock to the system, and I get stressed really easily when I'm there. Anyway, I missed my coach back because I missed my train because I'm a piece of and have no sense of direction. Plus I was rushing and panicking. I couldn't get the next coach because I was out of money and couldn't change the ticket because I'd spent so much on the Oyster card getting around for the weekend. And I couldn't get back to my brother's because that required a working Oyster card. At this point I was really pissed off. Worried, and I just wanted to get home. I was outside the coach station and it started raining. And feeling proper sorry for myself, I just slumped into a doorway and started blubbing like an. Some girl came across the road and asked me what was wrong. She bent down to face me and her face was kind, so I told her everything and just kept crying. She takes out her purse. Hands me a $5. Tells me to change my ticket and that it's going to be okay. Then she gave me a massive hug and ran back across the road to the cafe she was sat outside. I went back in, changed my ticket and got home. I never even got her name, but I think about her every now and then when I'm really stressed or sad and remember how a complete stranger reached out to me when I couldn't help myself. Love you, Queen.